Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Naruto learned the dark truth about the Shinobi system. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The ocean did not roar here, it screamed. That was the first thing Naruto Uzumaki noticed as he stepped off the small, weather-beaten skiff and onto the rocky, jagged coast of what used to be a nation. The gray sky hung low, a bruising purple at the edges, looking as though it were threatening to collapse into the churning black water below. The air tasted of salt, iron, and something older, something like stagnant rainwater trapped in a forgotten grave. Watch your step, Jiraiya said, hopping from the boat to the slick, moss-covered rocks with a grace that belied his massive, clog-wearing stature. The tides in the land of whirlpools are treacherous. They pull you under before you even realize you're wet. Naruto adjusted the strap of his backpack, his orange jumpsuit a violent, unnatural splash of color against the desaturated world of the ruins. He was 15 now, taller, broader in the shoulders, the baby fat of his cheeks melted away by 2 years of grueling training. But the eyes were the same, bright, cerulean blue, usually filled with an inexhaustible, naive energy. Today, however, those eyes were narrowed against the biting wind. So this is it? Naruto asked, his voice nearly swallowed by the wind. My mom's home? Jiraiya stopped ahead, his white mane of hair whipping wildly. He looked up at the cliffs looming above them. Atop the precipice, skeletal stone structures jutted out like broken teeth against the horizon. Yuzushiobikur, Jiraiya said, his tone unusually solemn. The perverted giggles and research antics had been left on the mainland. The village hidden in the whirling tides, the ancestral home of the Uzumaki clan. It was once a place of immense power and beauty, Naruto. Now, it is a graveyard. Naruto looked up, feeling a strange thrumming in his chest. It wasn't the Ninetales. The fox was asleep, buried deep within the seal. This was something else. A resonance. A vibration in his very blood. Why bring me here now, pervy sage? Naruto asked as he leaped to the next rock, following his master up the winding, treacherous path toward the cliff face. We've been training for 2 years. You barely mentioned this place before. You're ready, Jiraiya said simply, not looking back. You've mastered the Rasengan. You've improved your chakra control. But to control the Kyuubi, to truly understand the burden you carry, you need to understand the seal. And to understand the seal, you must understand the people who invented it. They climbed in silence for an hour. The path was littered with remnants of war, rusted kunai embedded in stone, craters from explosive tags that had long since been reclaimed by moss, and shattered porcelain masks half buried in the mud. When they finally crested the cliff, Naruto stopped dead. He had seen ruins before. He had seen the damage Orochimaru had done to Konoha. But this was different. This wasn't damage, this was erasure. The village hadn't just been destroyed, it had been pulverized. Great stone towers lay toppled like dominoes. The streets were cracked fissures in the earth. There were no wooden structures left. Fire had taken them decades ago, leaving only the bleaching stone skeletons of the main buildings. But on almost every surface, fading but defiant, was the red spiral crest, the same spiral on the back of Naruto's jacket. The same spiral on the back of every Chunin and Jonin vest in Konoha. They wore it on their armor, Jiraiya said quietly, noticing Naruto's gaze. Konoha and Uzushio were close allies. Distant relatives even. The Senju and the Uzumaki shared blood. To honor that friendship, Konoha adopted the Uzumaki crest as part of their standard uniform. It symbolizes an eternal bond. An eternal bond, Naruto repeated, the words tasting heavy. If we were such good friends, why does it look like this? Jiraiya sighed, a heavy, weary sound. He walked toward a large, semi-intact structure that looked like it might have been a library or a temple. Fear, Naruto. The world feared the Uzumaki. Their vitality was monstrous, their chakra reserves immense, but it was their fuinjutsu, their sealing techniques, that terrified the nations. They could seal away tailed beasts, suppress armies, and rewrite the laws of reality with ink and paper. Jiraiya paused at the entrance of the ruin, resting a hand on a scorched pillar. During the Second Great Ninja War, the other nations decided the Uzumaki were too dangerous to exist. A coalition formed. They struck hard and fast. Konoha. Jiraiya hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, a hitch in his breath that a younger Naruto would have missed. Konoha tried to send reinforcements, but we were too late. By the time our forces arrived, the whirlpools had already run red. Naruto looked out over the decimated city. He tried to imagine it, people with red hair, loud voices, eating, laughing. His family. I'm going to look around, Naruto said, his voice quiet. Jiraiya nodded. Don't wander too far. The chakra in this place is unstable. Old seals can still trigger if you disturb them. I'm going to set up a perimeter and prepare a campsite near the eastern wall. Come find me in an hour. Naruto adjusted his pack and walked into the heart of the ruins alone. The silence of the city was heavy, pressing against his eardrums. Naruto wandered aimlessly at first, tracing his fingers over carvings in the stone walls. He saw depictions of dragons, tigers, and demons, all trapped within geometric circles. He saw the crest of the Uzumaki everywhere. He felt a profound sense of loneliness, sharper and deeper than the isolation of his childhood. In Konoha, he was alone in a crowd. Here, he was alone in a tomb. He found himself drawn toward the center of the village, where the largest building had collapsed inward. It looked like an administrative center. The geography of the rubble felt familiar, oddly enough. It reminded him of the Hokage's office, just twisted and broken. Naruto kicked a piece of rubble, watching it skitter across the cracked floor. Some family reunion, he muttered to himself, trying to inject some of his usual bravado into the air, but the echo was hollow. He was about to turn back when he felt it. A pulse. It was faint, like a heartbeat under floorboards. It wasn't the malicious, burning chakra of the Kyuubi, nor was it the natural energy Jiraiya was trying to teach him to sense. It felt cold. Mathematical. Precise. Naruto frowned. He formed a cross with his fingers. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 3 clones popped into existence with a puff of smoke. They didn't need orders. They fanned out, lifting heavy slabs of stone and clearing debris from the area where the pulse seemed to originate. Over here, boss! One clone shouted, pointing to a section of the floor that looked less damaged than the rest. Naruto walked over. The floor was covered in a thick layer of gray dust, but beneath it, there was a seam. A trapdoor. It was made of a black metal that hadn't rusted, etched with complex sealing formulas that glowed with a faint, dying blue light. A seal, Naruto whispered. He crouched down, hovering his hand over it. The chakra reached out to him. It recognized him. Or rather, it recognized his blood. The blue light pulsed once, warm and inviting, and then the heavy metal door clicked. With a hiss of escaping air that had been trapped for decades, the door slid open. A dark staircase descended into the earth. Stay here, Naruto told his clones. If Pervy Sage comes looking, tell him I'm taking a leak. The clones nodded, and Naruto descended into the dark. The air in the subterranean chamber was dry and cold, preserved by whatever jutsu had sealed the room. Naruto formed a small Rasengan in his palm, not for combat, but to use the swirling blue sphere as a lantern. The light danced over the walls, revealing a bunker. It wasn't a combat bunker, though. It was an archive. Rows of stone shelves lined the walls, though many had collapsed, spilling rotting scrolls onto the floor. But the center of the room was intact. There was a large desk made of ironwood, perfectly preserved. Behind it sat a skeleton. Naruto recoiled slightly, the light of the Rasengan flickering. The skeleton was dressed in armor that had rusted to dust, but the headband on the skull was still shiny. The spiral of the Uzumaki. The figure had died sitting up. Naruto approached the desk slowly. The silence here was different. It wasn't empty. It was pregnant with secrets. On the desk, clear of dust thanks to a small, localized barrier seal that had long since faded, lay a single, thick book bound in black leather. Next to it was an inkwell that had dried up 30 years ago and a brush. Naruto extinguished the Rasengan and pulled a glow stick from his pouch, cracking it to bathe the room in a chemically green light. He felt like an intruder, a grave robber. But the pull was irresistible. He reached out and touched the book. The leather was cold. Log of Ashina Uzumaki, head of the Uzumaki clan. The final days. Naruto's breath hitched. This was the leader. This was his ancestor. He opened the book. The pages were brittle, but the ink was black and sharp, the handwriting jagged and hurried. Naruto skipped the early pages, mostly logistical reports about trade routes and chakra metal supplies, and flipped toward the end. The handwriting became more erratic. The dates were closer together. Day 12 of the siege. The mist and cloud forces have broken the third perimeter. Their numbers are endless. We have deployed the barrier squads, but our chakra is finite. We have sent 3 messenger birds to Konoha. No response. The jamming seals of the enemy are strong, but Hiruzen has sensory types who should be able to feel the disturbance in the tectonic chakra from miles away. They must know. Naruto frowned. Grandpa Hiruzen, he whispered. He turned the page. Day 14. The western wall has fallen. Casualties are at 40%. I have ordered the women and children to the evacuation tunnels, but the enemy knows the terrain. They are hunting us like dogs. Still no word from the Leaf. I sent a transmission directly to Danzo Shimura via our shared encrypted channel. I know he received it. The receipt seal activated. Why is there no answer? We are holding the line for them. We are the anvil. Where is the hammer? Naruto's stomach twisted. Danzo. He didn't know the name well, only that he was an elder in the village, a contemporary of the third Hokage. A cold dread began to pool in his gut. Day 15 morning. Mito sent word from the Pure Land. No, that is delirium. My mind is fraying. We are alone. I finally understand. I have analyzed the strategic board not as an ally, but as a Kage. Naruto leaned closer, his nose almost touching the paper. The handwriting here was pressed so hard into the page the paper had nearly torn. If Uzushio falls, the balance of power shifts. But how? If we are gone, the cloud and mist are weakened by the battle. But Konoha. Konoha possesses the 9 tails. My niece, Kushina, holds the beast within the Leaf's walls. As long as the Uzumaki clan exists, we have the political leverage to demand the beast be managed humanely, or even returned to us for safekeeping if the host fails. We are the jailers of the world's monsters, but if we are gone, Konoha becomes the sole proprietor of the ultimate weapon. Without the Uzumaki to keep the Leaf's power in check, Konoha becomes the undisputed hegemon of the Fire Country. They do not need to save us. They need us to die so they can monopolize the deterrent. Hiruzen, you old fool. Is this your will of fire? To burn your brothers to keep your own house warm? Naruto stopped reading. He stared at the page, the words swimming before his eyes. No, he whispered, shaking his head. No, that's wrong. The old man wouldn't. He loved the village. He loved everyone. But memories flashed in his mind unbidden. He saw himself sitting on a swing, alone, watching parents pick up their children. He saw the glares of the villagers. The whispers of demon and monster. He saw the third Hokage visiting his apartment, handing him an envelope of money once a month, smiling that grandfatherly smile, but never telling him why. Never telling him who his parents were. Never telling him that his mother was from a clan of royalty, a clan of power. They need us to die so they can monopolize the deterrent. Naruto felt a wave of nausea so violent he had to grip the desk to keep from falling. He looked back at the book. There was one final entry. Day 15 nightfall. They are at the door. The barrier is shattering. I have sealed the archives. I have hidden the forbidden arts. If any Uzumaki survives this, if any of our blood returns to this place, do not trust the Leaf. Their leaves are green only because they are fed by the blood of their roots. They did not arrive late. They never marched. They are coming. Long live the whirlpool. The entry ended with a splatter of ink, as if the writer had been interrupted. Naruto stared at the skeleton behind the desk. Ashina Uzumaki. He looked at the rusted sword lying on the floor next to the chair. The man had fought until the end, waiting for help that was deliberately withheld. Naruto closed the book. The sound was like a gunshot in the silent room. He stood there for a long time, the green glow of the chemlight casting long, monstrous shadows against the walls. He felt something breaking inside him. It wasn't a sudden snap, but a slow, grinding disintegration of a foundation he hadn't realized was so fragile. The will of fire. Jiraiya had preached it. Kakashi had lived by it. Hiruzen had died for it. Protect the king. Protect the village. The village is family. Lies, Naruto whispered. The word felt foreign, sharp. He thought of Sasuke. Sasuke, who had run away to gain power to kill Itachi. Sasuke, who screamed that Konoha didn't understand his pain. Naruto had called him selfish. He had called him crazy. Is he? Naruto thought. If the village could sacrifice an entire allied nation just to secure a tailed beast, what would they do to a single clan that threatened a coup? The thought was ice cold. It chilled the marrow of his bones. If Konoha could watch Uzushio burn to secure the Nine Tails, then the Uchiha massacre. Itachi. Naruto grabbed the black book and shoved it into his pouch. He swept his arm across the desk, gathering 2 other scrolls that looked intact, and shoved them in as well. He didn't know what they were. He didn't care. They belonged to him. Not to Konoha. To him. He looked at the skeleton one last time. He bowed, low and respectful. I'm sorry, Naruto said, his voice steady, devoid of the childish whine that had defined his speech for 15 years. I won't let it happen again. He turned and walked back toward the stairs. The climb back up felt different. Every step was heavier. When he reached the trapdoor, he paused. He could hear the wind howling outside. He could hear the ocean. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He had to go back out there. He had to face Jiraiya. Jiraiya, the Toad Sage. The 3rd Hokage's student. A man who sat on the council. Did he know? The question burned. Jiraiya had been in the war. He was a commander. There was no way he didn't know. The "we arrived too late" story, it was a script. A rehearsed line to keep the Jinchuriki loyal, to keep the weapon pointed in the right direction. Naruto pushed the hair out of his face. He felt the metal of his forehead protector against his skin. The leaf symbol. It suddenly felt incredibly heavy. Like he was wearing a shackle on his head. He pushed the trapdoor open and climbed out. The clones were gone, dispelled by the time limit. The ruins were exactly as he had left them, gray and dead. Naruto sealed the trapdoor again, piling rubble over it carefully, arranging the stones to look natural, untouched. He worked with a methodical precision he usually reserved for pranks. No one would find this room. Not unless he wanted them to. He began the walk back to the campsite. The wind had picked up. Rain was starting to fall, cold stinging drops that mixed with the salt spray. He found Jiraiya sitting under a large, magically reinforced tarp he had set up in the shelter of a crumbling wall. A small fire was crackling, defying the dampness. Jiraiya was stirring a pot of soup, looking relaxed. You took your time, Jiraiya said without looking up. Find anything interesting? Or just more rocks? Naruto stopped at the edge of the firelight. The warmth should have been comforting. It wasn't. He looked at Jiraiya. Really looked at him. He saw the lines of age on the Sanin's face. He saw the easy smile that hid 1,000 dead bodies. He saw a man who had chosen the village over everything else, over love, over friends, over truth. Naruto's hand brushed against the pouch where the black journal sat. He could scream. He could throw the book at Jiraiya's feet and demand an explanation. He could summon the chakra of the fox and tear this campsite apart. That's what Naruto Uzumaki would do. That's what the #1 hyperactive knucklehead ninja would do. But that Naruto had died in the basement. Naruto forced the muscles of his face to relax. He loosened his shoulders. He scratched the back of his head and put on a sheepish grin. It felt like wearing a mask made of human skin, but he did it. Just rocks, pervy sage, Naruto said. His voice was a little rough, a little deep, but he pitched it up at the end. And a bunch of old broken pottery. Boring stuff. Jiraiya looked up, spoon hovering midair. He studied Naruto's face. The sage's eyes were sharp, analytical. For a second, Naruto thought he saw through the lie. Then, Jiraiya smiled. Well, that's history for you. Often less exciting than the stories. Come on, soup's ready. Then we're going to work on your release. Naruto walked into the light and sat down. He took the bowl Jiraiya handed him. Hey, pervy sage? Yeah, kid? The Hokage. The position of Hokage. It's about protecting everyone, right? Like doing whatever it takes to keep the family safe? Jiraiya took a sip of his soup, nodding sagely. That's right. The Hokage is the pillar who endures all hardships so the leaves can bask in the sun. It's a hard path, Naruto. Sometimes you have to make difficult choices. Choices that hurt. But you do it for the greater good. The greater good, Naruto repeated. He looked down at his soup. In the reflection of the broth, he saw his own blue eyes. They looked darker in the firelight. Harder. I get it now, Naruto said softly. Good, Jiraiya grinned, mistaking the tone for determination. That's the will of fire talking. Naruto didn't answer. He brought the bowl to his lips and drank. The greater good, he thought, the words of Ashina Uzumaki echoing in his mind. They need us to die. The will of fire wasn't a philosophy of protection. It was a philosophy of fuel. It was about burning bright and hot, consuming everything, enemies, allies, even your own humanity, to keep the fire going. Naruto finished his soup and set the bowl down. I'm going to sleep early, Naruto said, standing up. I want to train hard tomorrow. Oh? That's the spirit. Jiraiya laughed. Naruto walked to his sleeping roll, laid it out, and turned his back to his master. He pulled the blanket up to his chin. He didn't sleep. He lay there, listening to the rain pound against the dead city of his ancestors, his hand clutching the pouch that held the truth. He would become Hokage. He was sure of that now more than ever, but he wouldn't be the Hokage Jiraiya wanted. He wouldn't be the Hokage Hiruzen was. He wouldn't be a pillar that held up a rotting roof. He would be the storm that tore it down. Naruto closed his eyes, and for the first time in his life, he didn't dream of ramen or acknowledgement. He dreamed of silence. He dreamed of the look on Danzo's face when the lights went out. The boy who wanted to be acknowledged was gone. The shinobi who understood the assignment had arrived. The journey from the land of whirlpools back toward the Fire Nation border was not a march. It was a funeral procession of two. For 3 days they moved through the damp, mist-choked lowlands that separated the coast from the mainland. The landscape was a miserable gray smear of weeping willows and mud that sucked at their sandals with every step. Normally, this would be the time for complaints. The Naruto of 2 weeks ago would have whined about the humidity, the bugs, or the lack of decent ramen shops in the middle of nowhere. He would have pestered Jiraiya for a new jutsu or asked for a break to chase a wild boar. But Naruto said nothing. He walked 5 paces behind Jiraiya, his rhythm steady, his breathing controlled. He wasn't dragging his feet. If anything, he was moving with a new, unsettling economy of motion. He stepped over roots rather than stomping on them. He moved through the brush without snapping twigs. Jiraiya, leading the way, felt the silence boring into his back like a Senbon needle. The Sannin cast a glance over his shoulder. Naruto was looking straight ahead, his blue eyes fixed on the horizon, but his mind was clearly miles away. He was clutching the strap of his backpack with a grip so tight his knuckles were white. You're brooding, Jiraiya said, forcing a light-hearted tone. He stopped, turning around and putting his hands on his hips. You know, women don't like men who brood. It makes you look like an Uchiha, and trust me, that look only works if you have the creepy eyes to match. Naruto stopped. He didn't smile. He didn't yell, I'm not brooding, you lecher. I'm thinking, Naruto said. His voice was calm. Flat. Thinking about what? Jiraiya pressed, his smile faltering slightly. The training? The Rasengan variants? Or are you just hungry? Naruto looked at his master. For a moment, Jiraiya saw a flash of something ancient in the boy's eyes, a look that reminded him uncomfortably of the third Hokage when he was weighing a death sentence. I'm thinking about history, pervy sage, Naruto replied. And how much of it is missing? Jiraiya felt a cold drop of sweat slide down his spine, despite the humidity. History is written by the victors, kid. That's just how the world works. Come on, we need to cross the river before nightfall. The border patrols in this sector are jumpy. Naruto didn't argue. He just nodded and resumed walking. They made camp that night in a dense thicket of trees just a few miles shy of the Fire Nation border. The air was clearer here, drier, smelling of pine and earth rather than salt and rot. Jiraiya set up the perimeter seals with his usual practiced ease, humming a tune from a red light district bar he fancied. When he turned back to the fire, he expected to see Naruto sleeping or sharpening a kunai. Instead, Naruto was sitting cross-legged by the firelight, reading. It wasn't one of his Aika books. Naruto had never touched those. It wasn't a comic. It was a scroll on Fuinjutsu theory that Jiraiya had given him months ago, one that Naruto had previously dismissed as too boring. Now, he was devouring it. His finger traced the complex ink patterns, his lips moving silently as he decoded the sealing formulas. Jiraiya sat down on a log opposite him, cracking open a small gourd of sake. He took a swig, the burn of the alcohol settling his nerves. Fuinjutsu, Jiraiya noted. Finally taking an interest in your heritage? Naruto didn't look up. The Uzumaki were masters of this. It's why they were feared. It is, Jiraiya agreed. And it's why they were respected. Respected, Naruto repeated the word, tasting it. He finally looked up, closing the scroll. The firelight danced across his face, casting deep shadows in the hollows of his cheeks. He looked older than 15. Is that what we call it? Respect? Jiraiya sighed, setting the sake down. He knew this conversation was coming. He had sensed a shift in Naruto ever since they left the ruins. He just hadn't realized how deep the cut went. Naruto, Jiraiya began, his voice dropping to a serious, grandfatherly timbre. What you saw in Uzushio, it was a tragedy. War is ugly. Things happen that we wish we could prevent, but dwelling on the past won't bring them back. We have to look forward. To the future. To the peace we're trying to build. Peace, Naruto said. He picked up a stick and poked the fire, sending a shower of sparks into the night air. You talk about peace a lot, sensei. You and the old man. The third. You both talked about the will of fire. About how the village is a family. It is a family, Jiraiya insisted. Families don't let their cousins get slaughtered to steal their inheritance, Naruto said. The silence that followed was deafening. The crickets seemed to stop chirping. The wind held its breath. Jiraiya stiffened. Watch your tongue, Naruto. That's a heavy accusation. Is it wrong? Naruto asked. He wasn't shouting. That was the terrifying part. He was asking with the clinical curiosity of a scientist dissecting a frog. I did the math, pervy sage. I'd been doing the math for 3 days. Naruto held up 3 fingers. 1. The Uzumaki were the best seal masters in the world. Their barriers could stop tailed beasts. If Konoha had sent support, even a single battalion of ANBU, the siege would have lasted months, long enough for a counterattack. But Uzushio fell in days. Which means no one came. He folded 1 finger. 2. The Ninetales. My mother was the Jinchuriki. Her predecessor was Mito Uzumaki. Konoha has held the fox for generations, solely because of the Uzumaki clan's sealing jutsu. If the Uzumaki clan remained strong, they could have demanded the fox back. Or at least, they would have had a say in how it was used. He folded the 2nd finger. 3. With the Uzumaki gone, Konoha becomes the only village with the Ninetales and the sealing knowledge to contain it. Barely. We have a monopoly on the ultimate weapon, and we didn't have to share power with our cousins anymore. Naruto dropped his hand, staring directly into Jiraiya's eyes. Did we let them die, Jiraiya? Did the 3rd Hokage sit in his office, smoke his pipe, and watch the smoke rise from the east, and do nothing? Jiraiya's expression hardened. The goofy uncle was gone. The Sannin was present. You are simplifying complex geopolitics, Naruto. You weren't there. You don't know the strain the village was under. We were fighting on 3 fronts. Resources were thin. Choices had to be made. Choices, Naruto echoed. Like the choice to let the Uchiha be wiped out. Jiraiya flinched. It was subtle, a twitch of the eye, but Naruto saw it. That's different, Jiraiya said sharply. The Uchiha were planning a coup. It was a civil war waiting to happen, so the solution was genocide? Naruto asked. Kill the men. Kill the women. Kill the old people selling rice cakes. Kill the kids playing in the park. Leave only one survivor to torture him into insanity? Naruto stood up slowly. He walked around the fire, pacing like a caged tiger. I used to think Sasuke was crazy, Naruto said softly. I thought he was just selfish. But now I'm wondering how the village could sleep at night. A whole clan, pervy sage. The police force. the founders of the village. Gone in one night. And everyone just accepted it? Everyone just believed that Itachi did it all by himself because he was testing his abilities. Naruto stopped pacing and faced Jiraiya. I've fought Itachi. He's strong. But he's not a god. To kill hundreds of people quietly, without raising an alarm until it was too late, he had help. Or he had permission. Which one was it? Jiraiya closed his eyes. He took a deep breath, the weight of decades of secrets pressing down on his shoulders. He couldn't lie to the boy. Not anymore. Naruto wasn't the fool they all pretended he was. The mask was off. It was a necessity, Jiraiya admitted, his voice rasping. The Uchiha were going to strike. If they had, the village would have been torn apart. Other nations would have invaded during the chaos. Belief would have ceased to exist. Itachi took the burden of being the villain to save the village from total destruction. So it was a sacrifice, Naruto summarized. The Uchiha for the village. Just like the Uzumaki for the fox. Yes, Jiraiya said. That is the reality of the shinobi world. We endure the darkness so the light can exist. And the Hyuga? Naruto pressed. The caged bird seal. A seal that turns family members into slaves. A seal that can kill them with a single thought from the main house. Does the Hokage allow that for peace too? The Byakugan is a strategic asset, Jiraiya argued, though his voice lacked conviction. If an enemy got hold of it. Assets, Naruto spat the word. That's all we are, isn't it? Assets. Weapons. Batteries. He tapped his own stomach, right over the seal. That brings me to the last thing, pervy sage. Naruto's voice trembled for the first time. The cold logic cracked, revealing the wounded child beneath. The fourth Hokage. Minato Namikaze. Jiraiya froze. He hadn't told Naruto. He had planned to, eventually. Maybe when he was Chunin. Maybe when he was older. I found a picture in the archives in Uzushio, Naruto lied smoothly. He hadn't, but he knew the resemblance was undeniable, and the journal had mentioned the marriage between Kushina and the Yellow Flash. And I'm not blind. The hair. The eyes. The fact that he sealed the fox in me. Naruto took a step closer. He was my father, wasn't he? Jiraiya looked down at the ground. Yes. And you were his teacher. Yes. And the third Hokage promised to take care of me. Yes. Naruto let out a short, dry laugh. It sounded like a bark. Some care. I drank expired milk, Jiraiya. I lived in an apartment filled with trash because no one taught me how to clean. I was overcharged at every store except the ramen shop. I was looked at like garbage. We had to hide your identity. Jiraiya stood up, his voice rising. Minato had enemies everywhere. Iwa Kumo. If they knew you were his son, they would have sent assassins when you were in diapers. We couldn't give you the Namikaze name. We couldn't let you be treated like a prince, or it would draw attention. So you let me be treated like a monster instead? The question hung in the air, sucking the oxygen out of the clearing. You let the village hate me, Naruto whispered. You let me grow up thinking I was nothing. You let me beg for attention, pull pranks just to get someone to look at me without disgust. You sacrificed my childhood to protect me from enemies that never came. It was for your safety, Jiraiya pleaded. Naruto, please understand. We were trying to keep you alive. You kept the Jinchuriki alive, Naruto corrected. You didn't keep Naruto alive. You didn't care about the boy. You cared about the container. Naruto turned his back on Jiraiya. He walked to the edge of the firelight, looking out into the dark forest. I used to want to be Hokage so bad, Naruto said quietly. I thought if I became Hokage, everyone would have to acknowledge me. They'd have to respect me. I thought the Hokage was the greatest person in the village. He looked back over his shoulder. The blue eyes were dull, like the ocean on a cloudy day. But the Hokage is just the head jailer, isn't he? He's the guy who decides who dies so the system keeps running. Hiruzen, he wasn't a kindly grandfather. He was a politician who bought my loyalty with an allowance envelope once a month. Don't speak ill of the dead, Jiraiya warned, a dangerous edge entering his voice. Sarutobi-sensei loved you. Maybe, Naruto shrugged. In his own twisted way. Just like you love the village. But that love is toxic, pervy sage. It eats people. Jiraiya stepped forward, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto, listen to me. The world is cruel. We are shinobi. We endure. We operate in the shadows to protect those who live in the light. That is our nindo. Naruto looked at the hand on his shoulder. Then he looked at Jiraiya. A shinobi endures from the shadows. Jiraiya repeated his mantra. Naruto reached up and removed Jiraiya's hand, dropping it to the side. The shadows are where you hide your sins, pervy sage, Naruto said. That's not endurance. That's just guilt. You hide in the dark because you're ashamed of what you had to do to keep the light on. Naruto walked back to his sleeping roll. He didn't get in. He sat down on it, pulling a whetstone and a kunai from his pouch. I'm not going to run away, Naruto said, the rasp of metal on stone filling the silence. I'm not Sasuke. I'm not going to defect. I'm going back to Konoha with you. Jiraiya let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Good. That's good. But things are going to be different, Naruto continued. I'm done shouting. I'm done playing the fool. And I'm done trusting you blindly. Naruto, we have a mission, right? Akatsuki is coming. Orochimaru is out there. I'll fight them. I'll protect the village. Because the innocent people in the ramen shop, the kids at the academy, they didn't choose this system. They're just living in it. Naruto tested the edge of the kunai against his thumb. A thin line of blood appeared. But the elders? The council? Danzo? Naruto's eyes narrowed. They are not the village. And I am not their weapon anymore. I am an Uzumaki. And I'm going to remind them what that means. Jiraiya stood by the fire, watching his student. He felt a profound sense of loss. The prophecy of the Toad Great Sage spoke of a student who would bring a great revolution to the world. A student who would bring peace. Jiraiya had always thought that meant a savior. A hero in bright orange who would smile and forgive the world its trespasses. Looking at the young man sitting in the shadows, sharpening a blade with cold, rhythmic precision, Jiraiya realized he had been wrong. Naruto wasn't going to save the shinobi system. He was going to dismantle it. Go to sleep, Erosenin, Naruto said, not looking up. We have a long walk tomorrow. The next morning, the sun rose over the Fire Nation, casting long beams of gold through the canopy. Jiraiya woke with a stiff neck. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, and looked over at Naruto's spot. The sleeping roll was neatly packed. The fire was doused and buried, leaving no trace. Naruto was standing by a nearby stream, washing his face. But he looked different. The bright, neon orange jumpsuit, the hallmark of Naruto's existence since the academy, was gone. In its place, Naruto wore a mesh undershirt that hugged his torso, covered by a black t-shirt with the Uzumaki spiral and a muted crimson on the chest. Over that, he wore a standard Konoha flak jacket, but unzipped loose. His pants were dark gray, taped at the shins, disappearing into black shinobi sandals. He wore black fingerless gloves with metal plates on the back of the hands. He looked practical. He looked dangerous. He looked like a killer. Jiraiya stood up, brushing leaves from his clothes. New look? Naruto dried his face with a towel. He turned around. The forehead protector was tied around his forehead, but the cloth was black, not blue. The orange was loud, Naruto said simply. It made me an easy target. And I'm tired of being a target. He picked up his pack. He didn't smile. He didn't strike a pose. Let's go. I want to see Kakashi-sensei. They broke camp in silence. As they crossed the invisible line that marked the border of the Land of Fire, Jiraiya felt a shift in the air. For 3 years, he had been training a boy. Today, he was walking beside a man who knew too much. Jiraiya looked at Naruto's back one last time. He thought of Minato. He thought of the prophecy. I taught him to be strong, Jiraiya thought, a heavy pit forming in his stomach. I taught him to hold the power of a demon. I taught him to fight gods, but I forgot to teach him to love the village that hates him. Lead the way, Jiraiya said quietly. Naruto didn't look back. He leaped into the trees, a dark blur moving through the leaves, heading home to a place that no longer felt like home. The gates of Konohagakure stood like the jaws of a sleeping beast. Green timber and iron, massive and imposing, painted with the kanji for an hermitage/retreat. For years, Naruto Uzumaki had looked at these gates and felt a swelling in his chest that he identified as pride. They were the threshold of his world, the barrier that kept the monsters out and the family in. Now, standing on the dirt road leading up to them, the midday sun beating down on his neck, he saw them differently. They weren't just walls to keep enemies out. They were walls to keep the secrets in. Well, Jiraiya said, stopping beside him. The Sannin stretched his arms high, his bones popping audibly. Smell that air. Nothing like the scent of the leaf after years on the road. We're finally back. Naruto didn't stretch. He stood perfectly still, his hands resting in the pockets of his dark gray trousers. The wind tugged at the hem of his open flak jacket, a generic Chunin vest he had purchased in a black market post near the border, lacking the leaf insignia on the back. Underneath, his black shirt bearing the crimson Uzumaki spiral seemed to absorb the sunlight rather than reflect it. Yeah, Naruto said. His voice was a low murmur. We're back. He looked up at the great stone faces carved into the mountain looming over the village. First, second, third, fourth. Hashirama Senju, who built the system. Tobarama Senju, who created the police state and segregated the Uchiha. Hiruzen Sarutobi, who allowed the roots to rot the tree. Minato Namikaze, who sacrificed his own son to clean up the mess. It was a Mount Rushmore of failures. They walked toward the guard post. Izumo and Kotetsu were there, exactly as they had been 3 years ago, bored and slouching. They were playing cards on the desk. Halt, Kotetsu said lazily, not looking up. State your business and show your identification. Is that any way to greet a legend? Jiraiya boomed, striking a kabuki pose. Kotetsu and Izumo jumped, cards scattering. Lady Jiraiya. Master Jiraiya, and... Izumo squinted, looking past the massive Sannin to the hooded figure standing in his shadow. Is that... Naruto stepped forward. He reached up and pulled down his hood. The spiky blonde hair was the same, perhaps a bit longer, shaggier. The whisker marks were the same, but the face was angular, hardened by weather and the weight of forbidden knowledge. And the eyes, those cerulean eyes that used to sparkle with mischief, were as still as a frozen lake. Hey, Naruto said. Naruto? Kotetsu gasped. No way. You're huge, and where's the jumpsuit? Izumo asked, looking him up and down, bewildered. I thought you were born in that orange thing. It wore out, Naruto said simply. He didn't smile. He didn't put his hands behind his head and grin. He just held out his registration papers. My entry permit. The two Chunin exchanged a confused glance. The Naruto they knew would have been screaming I'm home, by now. He would have been bragging. This young man moved like an ANBU captain filing a tax return. Right, Kotetsu stammered, stamping the book. Welcome back, Naruto. Lady Tsunade is expecting you. Thanks. Naruto walked past them, crossing the threshold into the village. The noise hit him first. The bustling market, the shouting vendors, the laughing children. It was the sound of peace. But to Naruto, it sounded like ignorance. These people were living their lives on top of a graveyard. They were buying vegetables and gossiping about neighbors while the Uchiha district sat empty and haunted a mile away. They were cheering for a Hokage who was shackled by 2 ancient advisors who had sanctioned genocide. I'm going to head to the baths, Jiraiya said, sensing Naruto's mood darkening. I need to, gather intelligence. You mean peep, Naruto corrected, his tone devoid of judgment, merely stating a fact. Research. Jiraiya coughed. I'll meet you at the Hokage's tower in an hour. Go say hi to your friends. I'm sure Sakura is dying to see you. Naruto watched Jiraiya disappear into the crowd with a flicker of movement. Alone, Naruto began to walk down the main street. He kept his head up. He didn't hide. He noticed the stairs immediately. 3 years ago, the stairs were filled with open hatred or fear. The demon brat. Now, the stairs were different. They were confused. They saw a tall, dangerous-looking shinobi with the face of the outcast. They sensed the chakra radiating off him, dense and controlled. The fear was still there, but it was evolved. It wasn't the fear of a nuisance, it was the fear of a predator. Is that him? He looks so serious. Did you hear? He's been training with Lord Jiraiya. Naruto ignored them. He was analyzing the village. Guard rotation on the north roofs is slow, he noted. 2 blind spots near the library. The structural integrity of the civilian apartments is poor. A single Earth-style jutsu would level this block. He wasn't looking at a home. He was looking at a battlefield. Naruto? The voice came from above. Naruto stopped and looked up at a telephone pole. A figure dropped down, landing gracefully in a crouch before straightening up. Pink hair, red shipao dress, the green vest of a chunin. Sakura Haruno. She had grown. She stood taller, carried herself with more confidence. The gloves on her hands were tight, suggesting she was ready to punch through a wall at a moment's notice. Sakura, Naruto said. He stopped walking. Sakura stared at him. Her green eyes went wide. She looked at his face, his clothes, his posture. A blush crept up her cheeks, followed immediately by a look of suspicion. You! She circled him, examining the changes. You're taller than me now. Yeah. That happens. And you're not wearing that eyesore of a jumpsuit. Stealth isn't exactly easy when you look like a traffic cone, Naruto replied. Sakura paused, waiting. She was waiting for the sexual harassment technique. She was waiting for him to ask her out on a date. She was waiting for the idiot. When the silence stretched to 5 seconds, she frowned. Is that it? No, Sakura-chan, you're so beautiful? No asking for a date? Naruto looked at her. He felt a pang of nostalgia, but it was distant, like remembering a toy he had lost as a toddler. He remembered loving her. Or thinking he did, but that love was based on a rivalry with Sasuke and a desperate need for validation. You look good, Sakura, he said politely. You look strong. Tsunade-bie. Lady Tsunade has taught you well, Sakura blinked. The compliment was sincere, but it was cold. It was the kind of thing a distant uncle would say. Thanks, she said, thrown off balance. Naruto, are you okay? You seem really quiet. It's been a long trip, Naruto said. I have to report to the Hokage. Is Kakashi-sensei in the village? Yeah, he's waiting at the tower. He's been reading that stupid book all morning. Sakura stepped closer, concern knitting her brow. Naruto, seriously. Did something happen? Did Jiraiya do something? Naruto looked at her. Really looked at her. She was a medical need now. She saved lives. She believed in the system because the system worked for her. She didn't know about Yuzashio. She didn't know the truth about the Uchiha. If I tell her, I break her, he thought. She's part of the king that Asuma talks about. The piece that needs to be protected from the truth. Nothing happened, Naruto lied. I just grew up, Sakura. That's all. He stepped around her and continued walking toward the red tower in the distance. Sakura stood there, watching his back. She felt a shiver run down her spine. The Naruto she knew ran toward people. This Naruto walked past them. The Hokage's office was exactly as he remembered it. The desk piled high with paperwork, the smell of sake and old parchment, the kanji for fire hanging on the wall. Tsunade sat behind the desk, her chin resting on her interlaced fingers. Shizen stood by her side, clutching Tonton the pig. Kakashi Hatake leaned against the wall in the corner, his single visible eye fixed on his Aika Paradise book. When Naruto walked in, the room went silent. Jiraiya was already there, leaning against the windowsill, looking uncharacteristically somber. Naruto Uzumaki, Tsunade said, her voice commanding. She scanned him with the eyes of a legendary healer. She saw the muscle density, the chakra flow, the lack of wasted movement. She nodded, impressed. Report. Naruto didn't shout Granny. He didn't complain about the mission. He bowed. A formal, 45-degree bow. Mission complete, Lady Hokage, Naruto said, straightening up. Training objectives achieved. Rasengan mastery confirmed. Chakra control improved. Genjutsu dissipation improved. Tactical analysis capabilities expanded. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. She glanced at Jiraiya. Jiraiya gave a small, almost imperceptible shrug. Tactical analysis? Kakashi spoke up, snapping his book shut. That's a new one. Usually, your tactics involve hit it until it stops moving. Naruto turned his head slowly to look at his sensei. Kakashi looked the same. The mask. The hair. The hidden sorrow. A hammer is a useful tool, sensei, Naruto said evenly. But sometimes you need a scalpel. And sometimes you need a seal. Kakashi's eye widened slightly. Well, Tsunade cleared her throat, breaking the tension. You've certainly changed. I expected a whirlwind, and I got a draft. But results are what matter. Kakashi? Yes, Lady Tsunade? Test him. I want to see if he's ready to return to active duty. And I want to see where he fits in the current team dynamics. Understood, Kakashi said. He pushed himself off the wall. Same training ground as before, Naruto? Training ground 3. The place where we first met, Naruto said. Fitting. Give me an hour to get Sakura, Kakashi said. We'll do a team evaluation. Fine, Naruto said. He turned to leave. Naruto, Tsunade called out. He stopped at the door, hand on the frame. Yes, Hokage-sama? Welcome home. Naruto didn't turn around. Thank you, he walked out. When the door clicked shut, Tsunade looked at Jiraiya. Jiraiya. What the hell did you do to him? He acts like an ANBU Black Ops veteran who's seen too many winters. Jiraiya looked out the window at the village below. I showed him the world, Tsunade. Unfortunately, he saw it clearly. Training Ground 3 was lush and green, the 3 wooden stumps standing as a testament to Team 7's beginning. The memorial stone, carved with the names of the dead, sat off to the side. Naruto arrived first. He walked over to the memorial stone. He traced the names with his gloved finger. Obito Uchiha, Rin Noara, Minato Namikaze. Heroes, Naruto whispered. Martyrs for a village that forgets why they died. Talking to ghosts? Naruto turned. Kakashi and Sakura were walking into the clearing. Sakura looked determined, pulling on her gloves. Kakashi looked relaxed, but his hand was hovering near his weapon pouch. Just reading the menu, Naruto said darkly. Menu? Sakura asked, confused. Never mind. Naruto walked to the center of the field. Kakashi stepped forward. He reached into his pocket and pulled out 2 silver bells. They chimed softly in the breeze. You know the drill, Kakashi said, his eye curving into a smile. Get the bells before noon. Come at me with the intent to kill. If you don't, we go back to the academy, Sakura finished, smiling. We know, sensei. Actually, Kakashi said, if you fail this time, you just get sent on D-rank missions for a month. I'm not sending you back to school. Let's begin, Naruto said. Ready. Start. Sakura immediately leaped back, punching the ground. Cha! The earth shattered, sending massive debris flying toward Kakashi to create cover. It was a perfect distraction. She vanished into the trees to flank. Naruto didn't move. He stood in the center of the clearing, watching Kakashi dodge the rocks. Naruto! Move! Sakura screamed from the tree-line. Kakashi landed on a branch, looking down at his student. Standing still isn't a strategy, Naruto. I'm not standing still, Naruto said. I'm waiting. Kakashi narrowed his eye. For what? Naruto raised his hand. He didn't form a seal. He just snapped his fingers. Boom! The branch Kakashi was standing on exploded, not with fire, but with wind. A vacuum sphere collapsed, shearing the wood instantly. Kakashi was forced to backflip into the air, landing in the center of the clearing. A delay seal? Kakashi thought, stunned. When did he place that? He hasn't moved. Wait. Shadow clones. Naruto was already moving. But it wasn't the wild charge Kakashi was used to. It was a flicker. Body flicker technique. Naruto appeared in Kakashi's guard, inside the reach of a kunai. He didn't punch. He drove an elbow toward Kakashi's solar plexus. Kakashi caught it, but the force skidded him backward 3 feet. He's heavy, Kakashi noted. His strikes have weight. Sakura! Now! Naruto said. Not a scream. A command. Sakura burst from the bushes, her fist glowing with chakra. She aimed for Kakashi's head. Kakashi ducked, sweeping her leg. Sakura jumped over the sweep, spinning to kick. While Kakashi was occupied with Sakura, Naruto didn't rush in. He wove hand signs. Fast. Blur of motion fast. Rat. Dog. Bird. Bore. Wind style. Great breakthrough. A concentrated cannonball of air blasted from Naruto's mouth. But he aimed it at the ground between Kakashi and Sakura. The impact threw up a massive cloud of dust, blinding everyone. Smoke screen? Kakashi thought, activating his Sharingan under the headband. He's using wind to create cover. In the dust, Kakashi sensed a presence behind him. He spun, kunai drawn. Clang! Naruto blocked the strike with a trench knife, a Suma style of weapon. Where had he gotten that? You're using your eyes too much, sensei, Naruto said, his face inches from Kakashi's. The Sharingan sees chakra. It sees movement. But it doesn't see intent. Naruto twisted his wrist, disarming Kakashi with a fluid, brutal maneuver that nearly snapped the Jonin's wrist. The kunai spun into the air. Kakashi leaped back, creating distance. The dust settled. Naruto stood holding Kakashi's kunai. Sakura was panting on the other side of the field. You've improved, Kakashi admitted, rubbing his wrist. Your taijutsu is Jonin level. And your usage of wind nature is precise. I learned from the toads, Naruto said. And I read some books. So, Kakashi dangled the bells. Are you going to try and take these? Naruto looked at the bells. Then he looked at Kakashi. This test, Naruto said, his voice carrying across the field. It's the same one the third Hokage used on the Sannin. It's the same one Minato Namikaze used on you. Kakashi froze. Naruto used the fourth's name casually. It's about teamwork, Sakura recited. Those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. That's a nice slogan, Naruto said. He dropped the kunai he was holding. It stuck point first into the dirt. But it's a lie, isn't it, Kakashi? The use of his name without the honorific made Kakashi stiffen. What are you talking about, Naruto? Sakura asked, sensing the mood shift. Naruto walked slowly toward Kakashi. He didn't raise his hands to fight. The village tells us to prioritize the team. But when a mission goes wrong, when the safety of the village is at stake, the team is expendable. Isn't that right? Naruto stopped 5 feet away. Your father, Tsukumo Hatake. The White Fang. He saved his friends. He abandoned the mission to save his team. And what did the village do? Kakashi's eye widened. His breath caught in his throat. They shamed him, Naruto said coldly. They spat on him. The very friends he saved turned their backs on him. The village drove him to suicide. Because he followed your rule. He put his friends above the mission. Naruto, stop, Kakashi whispered. The trauma of his father's death was a wound that never fully healed. So don't lecture me about teamwork, sensei, Naruto continued, his voice rising just slightly, trembling with suppressed rage. The shinobi system doesn't want teammates. It wants gears. It wants martyrs. It wants us to die quietly so the machine keeps turning. Naruto vanished. It wasn't a body flicker. It was pure speed. He appeared behind Kakashi. Kakashi spun, but Naruto wasn't attacking. He was already walking away. In Naruto's hand, the 2 bells jingled. Kakashi patted his hip. They were gone. When? When he was talking about Tsukumo? The psychological warfare created an opening? Naruto tossed 1 bell to Sakura. She caught it, stunned. He kept 1 for himself. I passed, Naruto said, not looking back. But I'm not playing your game anymore. The clearing was silent. The wind rustled the leaves. Sakura looked from the bell to Naruto, then to Kakashi. She saw her sensei standing there, looking older, smaller. He looked like a man who had just seen a ghost. Naruto. Sakura whispered. Naruto walked toward the exit of the training ground. Class is dismissed, he said. Naruto walked through the streets of Konoha as the sun began to set. The orange light bathed the village in a color he used to wear. Now, it looked like blood. He was hungry, but he didn't go to a Chiraku ramen. He couldn't face Tuchi's smile right now. He couldn't pretend everything was fine while slurping noodles. Instead, he went to a convenience store, bought a pre-packaged rice ball and a bottle of water, and sat on a swing. The swing. The one outside the Ninja Academy. The one where he had sat alone for years, watching the other kids with their parents. He took a bite of the cold rice ball. It was tasteless. Hey boss! Naruto looked up. A boy with a long blue scarf and a spiky helmet ran toward him. Konohamaru Sarutobi. Konohamaru, Naruto said, swallowing the rice. You're back. Konohamaru beamed, skidding to a halt. I heard you took down Kakashi-sensei. That's awesome. Teach me a new jutsu. Did you learn a Super Ultra Rasengan? Naruto looked at the third Hokage's grandson. He saw the same bright eyes, the same blind loyalty. Konohamaru wanted to be Hokage. He wanted to be the hero. Naruto felt a wave of pity so strong it almost made him sick. Konohamaru, Naruto said softly. Yeah, boss? Why do you want to be Hokage? Konohamaru blinked. To protect the village. And so everyone will stop calling me honorable grandson, and see me for who I am. To be acknowledged, Naruto nodded. That's what I thought too. Thought? Konohamaru tilted his head. Don't you still want to be Hokage? Naruto looked at the academy building behind the swing. He thought of the lessons they taught in there. Loyalty to the Kage. Self-sacrifice. The will of fire. They were training sheep to be eaten by wolves. I'm going to be Hokage, Naruto said. His voice was hard as iron. Konohamaru grinned. I knew it. We're rivals, right? But not to be acknowledged, Naruto finished. He looked Konohamaru in the eye. I'm going to be Hokage so that kids like you don't have to die for old men's mistakes. Konohamaru's smile faltered. He didn't understand. Boss? Naruto stood up. He crumpled the wrapper of the rice ball in his fist. Go home, Konohamaru. It's getting dark. Naruto walked away, leaving the boy confused by the swing. As he walked toward his apartment, Naruto passed a darkened alleyway. He sensed it before he saw it. The root-like chakra signature. An ANBU with a blank porcelain mask was watching him from the roof. Not a regular ANBU. Root. Danzo was watching. Naruto didn't look up. He let a small amount of Kurama's chakra leak out, just a wisp. It wasn't the raging red chakra of the past. It was cold, malicious, and intent. I see you, the chakra said. The root ANBU flinched and vanished. Naruto reached his apartment door. It was dusty. The keep out sign he had taped there 3 years ago was peeling. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air was stale. His plants were dead. The milk in the fridge was a solid block of mold. He didn't turn on the light. He walked to the window and looked out at the Hokage monument. He stared at the face of the fourth Hokage. His father. You left me a hell of a mess, Dad, Naruto whispered to the stone face. He unzipped his flak jacket and threw it on the bed. He sat down and pulled the black journal of Ashina Uzumaki from his pouch. The village was sleeping. The nightmare was just beginning. Naruto opened the book and began to read again. He needed to know everything. He needed to know where the bodies were buried, because soon, he was going to dig them all up. The archives of Konohagakure were vast, a labyrinth of paper and scroll dust buried beneath the administrative center of the Hokage Tower. To the average shinobi, this was a place of boredom, a punishment detail for chunin who had failed a mission or botched a patrol. Rows upon rows of mission reports, tax filings, and supply requisitions stretched into the gloom, smelling of mildew and bureaucracy. But Naruto Uzumaki knew that, like everything else in the village hidden in the leaves, the surface was just a distraction. The truth was buried deeper. It had been a week since his return. In that time, Naruto had played his part perfectly. He had reported for duty on time. He had completed 3 D-rank missions, walking dogs and pulling weeds, without a single complaint. He had smiled at Sakura when she checked his vitals at the hospital. He had waved at Tucci when passing the ramen stand, though he hadn't stopped to eat. He was building a pattern. He was becoming boring. Shinobi Rule Number 4, Naruto whispered to himself as he walked through the main library, his fingers trailing over the spines of history books. Deception is most effective when it is mundane. He found a secluded corner of the library, obscured by a stack of towering bookshelves filled with pre-war geography maps. He pulled a thick volume titled The Economic Impact of the Second Great Ninja War from the shelf and sat down at a small wooden table. He opened the book. He didn't read it. Instead, he formed a cross seal with his fingers under the table. Shadow Clone Jutsu. There was no puff of smoke, no loud pop. Naruto had spent the last 6 months of his training with Jiraiya refining his chakra control to microscopic levels. The clone manifested beside him in a whisper of displaced air, sliding instantly into the chair Naruto had just occupied. The clone picked up the book and began to read, its expression one of intense, studious boredom. The real Naruto slipped into the shadows between the shelves. He wore his infiltration gear, the dark gray trousers, the black shirt with the muted red spiral, and a hood pulled low. He had left the flak jacket behind. The metal plates clinked too much. He moved toward the ventilation shaft in the far corner of the ceiling. It was too small for a normal human, but Naruto wasn't relying on his physical size. He channeled wind chakra into his joints, dislocating his shoulders and hips with a sickening pop, compressing his frame just enough to slide into the grate. Pain was information. Pain meant he was focused. He pulled the grate shut behind him and began to crawl. The ventilation system of the Hokage Tower was a map of the village's hierarchy. The higher you went, the cleaner the air, leading to the Hokage's office. The lower you went, the colder it got. Naruto went down. He bypassed the standard archive levels. He bypassed the ANBU holding cells. He went deeper, into the foundation of the mountain itself. According to the blueprints he had memorized from the Uzushio journal, blueprints that Ashina Uzumaki had acquired decades ago during the construction of the village's defenses, there was a sub-basement that didn't appear on official Konoha maps. Sector N, Naruto thought. Root. The air here was frigid. It smelled of ozone and antiseptic. The ventilation shaft opened up into a high ceiling above a massive, circular room. Naruto peered through the slats. The room was dark, lit only by flickering torches along the walls. The floor was polished stone, clean enough to eat off of, but there was a lingering sense of dread in the atmosphere. It felt like a hospital where all the patients had died. Naruto dropped. He used a burst of wind chakra to cushion his landing, touching the floor silently. He was in a hallway adjacent to the main chamber. The walls were lined with filing cabinets, but these weren't wood. They were reinforced steel, sealed with chakra locks. Naruto approached the nearest cabinet. He placed his hand on the lock. It was a complex matrix, designed to incinerate the contents if forced open. Fourth-level barrier seal, Naruto analyzed. Sloppy. They rely on the assumption that no one would ever get this far. He bit his thumb, smearing a small line of blood across the seal. He didn't use brute force. He used finesse. He introduced his own chakra into the seal's logic gate, rewriting the command script. Open, he commanded silently. The lock clicked. The heavy drawer slid open. Naruto's eyes scanned the files. Subject 304, elimination confirmed. Subject 305, recruitment successful. Emotional suppression, 94%. Mission log, destabilization of the Land of Woods government. Authorized by Danzo Shimura. Danzo, Naruto breathed. The name felt like poison on his tongue. He flipped through the files faster. He wasn't looking for random missions. He was looking for connections. He needed to know how deep the route went. He found a folder marked Uchiha. His heart hammered against his ribs. He pulled it out. Operation Kinslayer. Objective: total neutralization of the Uchiha bloodline. Asset: Itachi Uchiha. Contingency: should the asset fail, root operatives are to deploy poison gas into the district ventilation. Naruto nearly dropped the folder. Poison gas. Even if Itachi hadn't done it, Danzo was ready to gas the entire sector like they were exterminating cockroaches. And there, at the bottom of the authorization form, was a second signature. It was smaller, hesitant, but undeniable. Hiruzen Sarutobi. Naruto closed his eyes. A tear leaked out, hot and angry. You knew, he whispered. Old man, you signed the paper. You didn't just look away. You signed it. The image of the third Hokage, the kindly grandfather who gave him his allowance, shattered. In its place was a weak old man, terrified of civil war, handing the knife to a butcher because he was too cowardly to wield it himself. Intruder. The voice was soft, devoid of inflection. Naruto didn't jump. He froze, then slowly turned his head. Standing at the end of the hallway was a boy about his age. He had pale skin, short black hair, and wore a crop top that exposed a pale midriff. On his back was a Tanto sword. In his hand was a brush, but it was his face that unnerved Naruto. It was a blank canvas. There was no anger, no fear, no surprise. It was a face that had forgotten how to be human. "You are not authorized to be in this sector," the boy said. He dipped his brush into a scroll he held open. "I will eliminate you." "You can try," Naruto said, sliding the Uchiha folder into his pouch. He turned fully, adopting a loose, defensive stance. "Root operative," Naruto deduced. "No name?" "I have no need for a name," the boy said. "I am a tool of Lord Danzo." "A tool," Naruto repeated. "Is that what he calls you? Does he polish you before he puts you back in the box?" The boy didn't respond to the taunt. He moved his brush with blinding speed. Ink flew from the scroll, twisting and writhing in the air. "Ninja art, super beast scroll." 3 ink lions leaped from the page, growing to the size of real beasts as they charged down the narrow hallway. Their roars were silent, but their teeth were sharp. Naruto didn't weave signs. He channeled wind chakra into his right hand, extending it into a 2-foot blade of invisible, oscillating air. Wind style, vacuum blade. He stepped forward, meeting the charge. The first lion lunged for his throat. Naruto sidestepped, bringing his hand down in a clean arc. The wind blade sheared through the ink, disrupting the chakra binding it. The lion exploded into a splash of black puddle on the floor. The second and third lions flanked him. Naruto dropped low, sweeping his leg. He didn't aim for the lions, he aimed for the floor. Wind style, gale palm. He blasted the ground beneath him. The concussion wave launched him upward, over the lions' heads. He spun in midair, throwing 2 shuriken. The shuriken weren't aimed at the beasts. They were aimed at the boy. The boy, Sai, didn't flinch. He drew his tanto and deflected the shuriken with 2 metallic tings. But the distraction worked. Naruto landed behind the lions, sprinting toward the operative. "Your art is sloppy," Naruto growled, closing the distance. "It has no soul." Sai's eyes narrowed slightly, the first sign of reaction. "Art is a mission objective. Soul is irrelevant." Sai leaped backward, drawing a bird on his scroll. The bird burst forth, huge and raptor-like. Sai grabbed its legs, lifting off the ground to hover near the ceiling. "Aerial advantage," Sai stated. He began to rain down ink snakes from above. Naruto dodged, weaving through the writhing vipers. The hallway was too tight for large jutsu. If he used the Rasengan, he might bring the ceiling down and bury the evidence. He needed precision. He looked at the walls. He looked at Sai. Naruto stopped dodging. He stood still. "Giving up?" Sai asked. "Just aiming," Naruto replied. Naruto inhaled deeply, his chest expanding. He focused his chakra into his lungs, compressing it until it burned. Wind style, air bullets. He fired 3 rapid shots of compressed air from his mouth. They were invisible, faster than sound. Bam! 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 The first bullet clipped the bird's wing. The ink destabilized. The second hit Sai in the shoulder, spinning him around. The third shattered the scroll in Sai's hand. Sai fell. He hit the ground with a heavy thud, rolling to his feet instantly. But he was disarmed of his primary weapon. He raised his tanto, ready for close quarters. Naruto was already there. He didn't use a wind blade this time. He used his fist. He parried Sai's sword thrust with his metal-plated glove, sparks flying. He stepped inside Sai's guard, drove a knee into the boy's stomach, and followed with a hook to the jaw. It was brutal. It was efficient. It was the fighting style of someone who wanted to end the fight, not prolong it. Sai stumbled back, blood trickling from his lip. He looked at the blood, puzzled. "Pain." "Yeah," Naruto said, breathing heavily. "That's pain. It means you're alive." Sai looked up. "Why do you not kill me?" "You have the advantage. A shinobi eliminates threats." "Because you're not the threat," Naruto said. He walked over, kicking the fallen tanto away. "You're the victim." Naruto grabbed Sai by the collar of his crop top and slammed him against the metal filing cabinets. The noise echoed like a gong. "Who are you?" Naruto demanded. "What's your name?" "I have no. Don't give me that I am a tool crap." Naruto shouted, his voice cracking. "You were born. You had a mother. You had a father. Someone held you. What is your name?" Sai stared at Naruto. He looked into those blue eyes and saw something he couldn't calculate. He saw a rage, yes, but beneath it, he saw a profound sadness. Sai, the boy whispered. I was given the name Sai. Sai, Naruto repeated. He loosened his grip. Listen to me, Sai. Danzo didn't give you strength. He stole your weakness. And without weakness, you can't understand why people fight. That's why your lions were slow. That's why you lost. Sai tilted his head. I do not understand. You don't have to, Naruto said. Not yet. Naruto released him. Sai slid to the floor, rubbing his jaw. Why are you here? Sai asked. To save this village, Naruto said, looking at the rows of files. From itself, Naruto turned back to the cabinet. He grabbed 3 more folders. Financial records of Root. Black market chakra metal dealings. The Hyuga affair. You cannot take those, Sai said, though he didn't move to stop him. Lord Danzo will know. Let him know, Naruto said. He shoved the files into his pouch. Tell him Naruto Uzumaki was here. Tell him the Jinchuriki knows. Jinchuriki. Sai's eyes widened slightly. The vessel of the 9 tails. I'm not a vessel, Naruto said coldly. I'm the jailer. Naruto looked at Sai one last time. Get out of here, Sai. Go above ground. Look at the sky. Paint something that isn't killing someone. Maybe you'll remember who you were before they put that mask on your soul. Naruto turned and sprinted down the hallway, toward the exit. Sai sat alone in the dim light. He looked at his ink brush, broken on the floor. He looked at the blood on his hand. He reached into his back pouch and pulled out a small, tattered picture book. The one he never showed anyone. The one about his brother. Sai, he whispered. The word felt strange. Naruto emerged from the ventilation shaft into the cool night air of the village. He was on the roof of the library now. The moon was high, a perfect white circle. He was shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline and revulsion. The fight with Sai had been short, but it had terrified him. Not because Sai was strong, but because Sai was a mirror. If I hadn't met Iruka-sensei, Naruto thought. If I hadn't met Tsuchi. If I had been taken in by Danzo instead of the third. I would be him. I would be a weapon without an aim. He clutched his chest, feeling the heavy thrum of the fox's chakra. He's awake. Naruto sat down in the lotus position on the roof. He closed his eyes and sank into his mindscape. The sewer was as damp and gloomy as the Root headquarters. The water around his ankles was tepid. Naruto walked down the corridor toward the massive golden gates. Behind the bars, the 9-tailed fox lay, its massive head resting on its paws. One giant red eye cracked open, focusing on the boy. You reek of ink and hypocrisy, Kurama rumbled. His voice shook the water. Hello to you too, Fuzzball, Naruto said. He didn't yell. He walked right up to the bars and leaned against them. You found the files, the fox sneered. Did you find what you were looking for? Or did you just find more reasons to hate them? Both, Naruto said. I found the order for the Uchiha massacre. Signed by the third. The fox let out a low, guttural laugh. Hiruzen Sarutobi. The god of Shinobi. A man who preached love while his hands were soaked in blood. I told you, brat. Humans are all the same. They fear power, so they try to control it. When they can't control it, they destroy it. You're right, Naruto said. The fox stopped laughing. He blinked. What? You're right, Naruto repeated. He looked up at the massive demon. The system is broken. Konoha, it's not a village. It's a military camp pretending to be a home. They used you. They used my mother. They used the Uchiha. They used everyone. Kurama shifted, rising to his full height. He brought his face close to the bars. So what will you do? Destroy it? Will you open the seal and let me finish what I started 16 years ago? Naruto looked at the seal on the gate. The paper was fraying slightly at the edges. No, Naruto said. If I destroy the village, the innocent people die. The Ichiraka guy. Iruka. Konohamaru. They didn't do this. Then what? I'm going to cut the roots, Naruto said. His eyes in the mindscape shifted from blue to a piercing red, mirroring the fox's. I'm going to expose Danzo. I'm going to dismantle the council. I'm going to make Tsunade choose, be a real Hokage, or be a puppet. A coup, Kurama mused. Interesting. And where do I fit in this little revolution? I need your power, Naruto said bluntly. Not your rage. Your power. I can't fight Danzo and his army of roots alone. I need chakra. And I need a partner. Partner? The fox snorted. I am a calamity, not a partner. You're a prisoner, Naruto corrected. Just like Sai. Just like me. We're both stuck in this cage, Kurama. The name hung in the air. The fox froze. You know my name? Found it in the Uzushio archives, Naruto lied. He hadn't, but he had a feeling. Kurama. It suits you better than Demon Fox. Kurama stared at the boy. For centuries, he had been called monster, beast, calamity, weapon. Kurama, the fox tested the sound of it. Humph. Don't think flattery will buy my loyalty, Kit. I don't want your loyalty, Naruto said, turning to walk away from the gate. I want your anger. Because right now, I'm pretty angry too. Naruto began to fade from the mindscape. Wait, Kurama growled. Naruto stopped. The boy. The accuser. Why did you spare him? Because, Naruto said, looking back over his shoulder. A weapon breaks when you hit it hard enough. A human bends. I need him to bend. Naruto vanished. In the silence of the sewer, the nine-tailed fox smirked. It was a terrifying expression. Finally, Kurama rumbled. This is getting interesting. Back in the library, the shadow clone dispelled. The memories rushed into Naruto. 3 hours of reading about economics. Naruto stood up on the roof, stretching his stiff limbs. He had the files. He had the proof. But he couldn't use it yet. It was too soon. If he released this now, Danzo would spin it. He would call the documents forgeries. He would have Naruto assassinated in his sleep. Naruto needed leverage. He needed a stage. And he needed to be undeniable. He looked toward the forest of death. Next step, Naruto murmured. Orochimaru. The snake Sannin knew things. He was a former associate of Danzo. If Naruto could get Orochimaru to talk, or at least steal his intelligence, he would have the final nail in the coffin. Naruto jumped from the roof, landing in the alleyway below. He adjusted his headband. As he walked home, he passed a flower shop. It was closed, but in the window, he saw a reflection of himself. He didn't look like a hero. He looked like a shadow. A shinobi endures from the shadows, Jiraiya had said. Fine, Naruto whispered. I'll be the shadow. But I'm going to be the shadow that eats the dark. He reached his apartment. He didn't turn on the lights. He sat at his small table, lit a single candle, and opened the folder labeled Operation Kinslayer. He began to memorize the names of every root agent involved. He would visit them. One by one. Not to kill them. But to let them know. To let them know that the ghost of the Uchiha had returned, and he was wearing orange no longer. The next morning, Naruto stood at the mission desk. Tsunade looked tired. Shizen was frantic. Team Kakashi, Tsunade announced. We have a lead on the Akatsuki. A spy of Sasori's is meeting a contact at the Tenchi Bridge, Sakura gasped. That means, a lead on Sasuke, Kakashi nodded. This is our chance. Tsunade looked at Naruto. Naruto. Are you ready? Naruto looked at the map on the desk. Tenchi Bridge. It was a trap. It had to be. But it was also an opportunity. Orochimaru would be there. I'm ready, Naruto said. His voice was calm, professional. Good, Tsunade said. But since Kakashi is still recovering from overusing his Sharingan in the last assessment. I'm fine, Kakashi protested weakly. You're not, Tsunade snapped. I'm assigning a temporary captain. An ANBU from the elite roster. The door opened. A man walked in. He had brown hair and large, staring eyes. He wore the standard Jonin vest, but the wood-style chakra radiating off him was unmistakable. Captain Yamato, Tsunade introduced. And I'm adding a fourth member to the team to balance the formation. A second figure walked in, pale skin. Crop top. Tanto on his back. A fake smile plastered on his face that didn't reach his eyes. Sakura looked confused. Who is this? Naruto didn't blink. He looked at the boy. Sai, the boy said. Nice to meet you. He looked at Naruto. For a fraction of a second, The fake smile faltered. There was a flicker of recognition, fear, and something else. Respect? Nice to meet you too, Naruto said, extending a hand. Sai stared at the hand. Then, tentatively, he took it. Naruto squeezed hard. A warning. I'm watching you. Sai squeezed back. An acknowledgement. I know. Alright, Yamato clapped his hands. Team Kakashi, reborn. Let's move out. We have a snake to catch. Naruto turned to the door. Orochimaru, he thought. I'm coming for you. And I have some questions. As they left the village, Naruto touched the pouch where the stolen files were sealed. He felt the weight of the village's sins against his hip. The mission had started. But the war was already here.